Hi there, welcome to Lydia's Books. I'm Lydia, and today we're going to talk about some of the books coming out in December. It's a couple days late. It's been awfully busy, but I have gotten through a whole bunch of my nonfiction November reads, so we'll talk about that in the next video. But for now, December is pretty jam-packed, but I added in a whole bunch of thriller books, mostly because they have snowy covers. I missed one last month that sounds extremely cool to me. It's The Haunting of Sorrow's Leap by Chris Sorensen. It came out November 28th, and I love this cover. Like, as much as I talk about liking those woodcut kind of folk horror things with like roots and stuff on it and skulls, this is the same sort of feel, but a different take on it. It's got a lovely tall serif font and just a very plain woman in a dress at the edge of a cliff. The Haunting of Sorrow's Leap. Wonderful stuff. Chris Sorensen wrote The Nightmare Room, I believe it was, and it was a series of books about a podcaster, basically. And yeah, I really enjoyed that. So yes, November 28th. Alan Marks used to talk to the dead, and now they're ghosting her. When she joins a ragtag crew of psychic misfits to investigate the mystery lurking inside a reclusive horror author's crumbling Hudson Valley estate, she finds the dead aren't finished with her yet. And that whole premise, the cover, Chris Sorensen's a great writer. I really am looking forward to this one. So, without further ado, December 2nd, we start out pretty strong with Dark Matter by Kathy Koja. This is the third and final book in the Dark Factory series, and I absolutely love Kathy Koja. I've got a whole bunch of signed, gorgeous, beautiful, wonderful Kathy Koja, and a signed arc of Bad Brains, of all things, a paperback, but an arc nevertheless, and just really proud of this stuff in my collection. And Extremities too. I have Extremities somewhere. But anyway, When the World Ends, Chaos Begins, for Farrell Bunny Graves, playing life like a high-stakes game where the only way to win is to smash the board to bits. For Max Casper in Charm School the Scholar, chasing ancient myth all the way around the real world. And for Ari Reagan, caught between dangerous jealousy and passionate love, corporate war and ambition so intense that failure is death, making the party to end all parties a party that never ends. And on the cover we have one of those crazy sky-high 9-inch heel stiletto spike boots being laced up on a sexy leg, and it says Dark Matter down the side. It's kind of playing with some solarized looking photography in oranges and skin tones and yellows, so someone's playing with fire. Also on December 2nd, we have a T. Kingfisher book that is not part of the Sworn Soldier series. This is Snake Eater, and it comes out again December 2nd. With only a few dollars to her name and her beloved dog Copper by her side, Selena flees her past in the city to claim her late aunt's house in the desert town of Quartz Creek. And the scorpions and spiders are better than what she left behind. And you would think that this would have a mansion or a house on the cover, and there's a lot of houses on the covers to come in these books I'm going to talk about. But this has, like, I guess an ostrich of some sort, or maybe it's not a kingfisher. Those are beautiful birds, I will say, eating a snake with a very stylized font on it. It's got these slight serifs. It reminds me of a copper plate. It's a really gorgeous font, all told. But yeah, because in Quartz Creek, there's a strange beauty to everything, from the landscape to new friends and more blue sky than Selena's ever seen. But something lurks beneath the surface, like the desert gods and spirits lingering outside Selena's house at night, keeping watch. Mostly benevolent, says her neighbor, Grandma Billy. This sort of reminds me of Old Country, I think it was called, by Mark and Harrison Query, if I remember the authors' names correctly. I'm very interested in this story. I really like T. Kingfisher's work, and T. Kingfisher, as you may know, is a pseudonym for Ursula Vernon, an author from North Carolina. So December 2nd does hold a lot of these thrillers with houses on the covers and snow. The Gallagher Place, a novel by Julie Dorr, and it's a top-down, like an aerial shot of a cabin or house in the snowy woods, and I love this. It's got a plain sans serif font and just greenish kind of font too, which sort of leads to like a misty, murky, something's wrong juxtaposed with all of this very blue, sort of like late night or early morning light on the trees, giving it a blue glow. So yeah, when Marlo Fisher, an illustrator living in New York City, returns to her family's bewitching Hudson Valley home for the holidays, she discovers a body in the woods. A murder that draws her back into the haunting case of her teenage best friend's disappearance 2 decades earlier. What happened to Nora? As police descend on the sprawling Fisher property, Marlo is pulled into an investigation that threatens to unravel the town's fragile loyalties and expose a shadowed legacy of a weekend home steeped in secrets. That's the kind of weekend home that I would like to have. Marlo must confront the fallibility of her own memory and the feeling that everyone, including her brothers, is hiding something if she's to uncover the shocking truth about her lost friend. Thriller writers and thriller marketers really know how to write a description. It may not be something that totally entices every horror fan, but you gotta say it's written well. In this gripping debut, love a debut novel, Julie Dorr delivers a chilling mystery that explores the corrosive power of silence and tension of family secrets. Now, it's not quite got enough killing for me. So we move to The Living and the Dead by Christopher Carlson, and another top-down snowy road with that sort of bluish-greenish cast and yellow text in a sans serif font. Like, I'm definitely detecting a trend in thrillers. Ever since The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, I think they've really favored these bold, tall sans serif fonts. Small towns sometimes have a voice of their own. On a snowy winter night in 1999, Sander and Killian leave a house party together outside of a small town in rural Sweden. The very, very best of friends, the two 17-year-olds imagine they will remain so forever. But by the next morning, a corpse is found in the trunk of a car and each boy is suspect of murder. Each has something they want to conceal from the other and the police. The hunt for the killer takes more than 20 years, and it will see the lead detective leave the force forever, and it won't end until a second body turns up in a similar circumstance and the tight-knit community's secrets are finally brought to light. This reminds me of The Killing. If you've not seen that, there is the Scandi version, and I think there's a remake version. I watched them both. The Killing is really great, actually. So we move on to December 6th for probably the showcase cover of all these covers. I absolutely love this. It's called Hinterland by Logan Spurgeon, and it's a white cover. And again, it's got this really tall, stretched, all caps, serifed font. And that's what I liked about The Haunting of Sorrow's Leap so much. And it's got this deer face on the cover that just dominates. It's the charcoal blacks and grays and whites that really set this cover off. And with the tagline, like the old gods are watching, I want this book so bad. Kestrel wakes in the woods without memories, surrounded by strangers, an altar on fire, and bones hanging from trees. Forced to journey to the mountain of gods, he must pretend to adhere to the beliefs of the doomsday cult to survive. As winter closes in and the rituals threaten to strip his humanity, Kestrel must decide who to trust as he plans to escape. Okay. I like a good cult book. I really do. Who doesn't? It's really like the popular thing. This is sort of like cult tied to folk horror, and it sounds wintry. I don't know. I'm just assuming that it doesn't just take place on the cusp of winter. I think we've got some blizzards in store. So yeah, I am very excited about this. And I think part of it is because when I was a little kid, and a lot of Canadian kids were haunted maybe by these commercials that were on television called Hinterland Who's Who, and it had this haunting flute melody that played, and then it would talk about the loon or the beaver, or like about bighorn sheep or bears or raccoons, like whatever animal it would like introduce you to. The moose, right? You can find them all over YouTube. I'll link one in the comments below. I'll choose maybe the loon is probably my favorite one. And it's probably why I use the loon sound in my intro and outro of this show. On December 9th, we start out with a book that I mostly picked for the cover. Like most of these books are picked for the cover in a lot of ways, but this one, I can never turn down a torn yellow wallpaper cover book, right? Like, what horror fan can't? This is called Cape Fever, a novel by Nadia Davids, And the year is 1920. In a small, unnamed city in a colonial empire, Soraya Matas believes she has found the ideal job as a personal maid to the eccentric Mrs. Hattig, whose beautiful decaying home is not far from the Muslim quarter where Soraya lives with her parents. As Soraya settles into her new role, she discovers that the house is alive with spirits. While Miss Hattig eagerly awaits her son's visit from London, she offers to help Soraya stay in touch with her fiancé Noir by writing him letters on her behalf. So begins a strange weekly meeting where Soraya dictates and Mrs. Hattig writes, a ritual that binds the two women to one another and eventually threatens the sanity of both. So yes, I like threatened sanity. The yellow wallpaper on the cover, what can you be saying with that, right? It must have something to do with feral women going mad upstairs, right? It's got a very interesting font, which is a little bit unhinged as well. The sizing is all wrong. The width of the letters is all wrong. The kerning is all wrong, but it works really well. I suspect, much like these two women. Now, while this next book only kind of tangentially reminds me of the previous book because of the title Dark Sisters, and it's got sort of a tarn wallpaper looking cover with a strange photograph of two women melded together. Dark Sisters, a novel by Christy DeMeester. In this fiercely captivating novel, horror meets historical fiction when a curse bridges generations, binding the fates of three women. Anne Bolton, a healer facing persecution for witchcraft, bargains with a dark entity for protection, but the fire she unleashes will reverberate for centuries. Mary Shepherd, a picture-perfect wife in a suffocating community, falls for Sharon and begins a forbidden affair that could destroy them both. And Camilla Burson, the rebellious daughter of a preacher, defies conformist expectations to uncover an ancient power as her father's flock spirals into crisis. So I like this premise. I'm not big on the sapphic horror, and I know a lot of people really are. It's very, very, very popular. I read enough of it, I think, maybe, and I just got tired of it a little bit when in my teens and such, and there's so much more of it now, so I wish I would have been interested in it now. But yeah, I still really am interested in this. I will keep my eye out for it. The cover is interesting because it's got these red torn pages and the picture, as I'd said, of two women sort of melding together in a sort of trick photography, and a script font, which I wouldn't usually recommend on the front of a book because it's not easy to read. But yeah, Dark Sisters on the top, Christy DeMeester on the bottom in white. Gorgeous, really gorgeous looking book. More December 9th, Midnight Somewhere, a short story collection by Johnny Compton. After The Spite House, I've been very interested in reading more from Johnny Compton and seeing him talk at StokerCon. The cover is interesting because it's got a real mix of fonts, which I normally, it doesn't work very well, but whoever designed this cover did a really good job that they can use multiple fonts and they've done it right. Midnight Somewhere is sort of like in a funky, if you've watched Spider Baby, I think that font, that sort of like weird, funky 30s horror font is what is going on here. And sort of like a varsity font, a very slab serif font like Rockwell or something, but a little more condensed than that for Johnny Compton. And it is a collection, so he lists all of the little synopses for all of the stories. A man gets into a car that can take him anywhere he can imagine, including the past, into the worst mistake of his life. A seemingly harmless, forgettable film about an alien hand syndrome inspires a wave of self-harm among viewers and even stranger things among those who become obsessed with it. I like a good possessed hand story. A woman tries to bring her dead lover to life through a macabre ritual that requires attacking his corpse. It is because she longs to be with him again. Now, if you have seen the film Bring Her Back, this might spark a little resemblance as it does with me. I hope that it's anything like that. That was an excellent film. If you have not seen it, wonderful stuff. The assorted characters in this thrilling collection encounter horrors that range from mysterious to murderous, discovering that darkness can find anyone, anywhere, at any hour of the day. After all, it's always midnight somewhere. I like that. I like this too. 9 authentic ghost stories edited by Kirsty Logan. And if you, like me, appreciate ghost stories for Christmas, this might be on your list. The cover is really gorgeous. It's got what looks like cemetery gates on a light grayish blue background of shadowed house or mansion in the background with leaves and trees the way I like it. It looks sort of folksy, but also just very refined because it's got a very nice plain sort of gold leaf looking font to it. I like this. First published in 1886 and reprinted here with a bewitching introduction by Christy Logan, the spooky tales in this little book are guaranteed to send a tingle down your spine. These uncanny stories feature secret rooms, spinning wheels, phantom carriages, hidden messages, haunted portraits, unsolved murders, and thwarted love affairs. Set in Scotland, Cornwall, and Spain, each is told by an eyewitness narrator. So they're all true ghost stories. I really like this. Yeah, perfect for Christmas, I think. And something completely different, but still a collection, we have on December 9th still Sinister Society's 6 novellas of secrets and horrors. And the cover is just cool. Like, it's got this sigil looking thing of a circle, triangle, and a hand with an eye sort of engraved on a cave wall maybe, and someone in a red cloak ministering over others in red cloaks. From the esoteric to the pragmatic, history is built on secret societies made as much of myth and rumor as blood and bone. Some societies are real organizations with documented histories. Those are my favorites. Some are patchwork figments of speculation, malevolence, conspiracy theory, and perhaps even the delicious specter of world domination. Or, if you're the anthill kids, just being a psycho freak that wanted to cut people up and bang everybody. It's no secret that these societies change lives, for better or worse, I must say. Being someone interested in what Scientology does to people, there's a really cool talk with Miscavige's niece who has left Sea Org. If you haven't seen it, I should link that below too. 6 of today's best horror writers explore these changes for better or worse alongside the darker implications and motivations of such sinister societies. So we have Mercedes M. Yardley, Tom Deddy, Sarah Reed, Eric Nunnally, Cindy O'Quinn, and Michael Burke as they uncover the darkness that infests the hidden corners of the mind and soul. I wonder if any inklings of this will have true stories. So finally on to another day, December 16th, Dig Me a Grave, the inside story of the serial killer who seduced the South by Richard A. Harpoulian and Sean Sale. Now, this book, I listened to an in-depth interview with the author who was a lawyer. So if you're interested in true crime and nonfiction, this may be for you. Pee Wee Gaskins isn't like the most well-known serial killer, but he is really the most brutal and out there. He is like almost comical in his insanity. And I've listened to other podcasts about him, but this one plays well with my favorite podcast about him because it was from last podcast on the left. Last podcast on the left talked about Pee Wee Gaskins years ago, and now they've interviewed the author of this book, Dig Me a Grave. Of the hundreds of murder cases that noted South Carolina attorney Dick Harpoulian has prosecuted, one in particular haunts him. Donald Pee Wee Gaskins was a serial killer and rapist, a master manipulator who claimed to have killed over 100 people and is known to have murdered over a dozen, including a toddler and his own teenage niece. Dark stuff. I don't know if I have to give a trigger warning for the nature of my show. I typically do talk into darker fare and extreme horror fiction. I think the most extreme true crime, it goes without saying. I think it fits into my reading style quite well, considering my nonfiction picks for last month. Still enjoying In Cold Blood a lot. But yes, anyhow, it was on death row that he pulled off his most audacious murder, killing another inmate with military-grade explosives. It's crazy. He's very crazy. As personable as he was callous, Pee Wee defied easy categories. He killed to avenge minor slights as well as for pleasure, using any convenient method, including stabbing, shooting, poison, suffocation, and drowning. Evidence suggested he forced at least one person to dig their own grave, stand in it, and be shot. That's crazy. He's crazier than Kuklinski, I think. With escalating callousness, Pee Wee murdered acquaintances, friends, family members, and strangers, yet within his North Charleston community, he was well-liked, a family man who took neighborhood kids to the beach and hosted cookouts. Ice cold within, but outwardly charming, he joked with judges and reporters. And it goes on. I'm going to leave this there. There's a little bit more, but yeah, you get the picture. He's wild. And if you haven't listened to podcasts or watched shows about Pee Wee Gaskins before, he has his own book that's out there. Very, very hard to find, probably impossible to find, called The Final Truth. I've had it on my want list for a very, very long time. I kind of don't want to read it. I think I just want to own it. But he, goes through and writes down his whole memoir. And that's the final truth, so to speak. Very interesting. Jigmea Grave, Dick Harpootlian. Very cool book. The second last book on our list is also December 16th, The Best Horror of the Year, Volume 17 by Ellen Datlow. So if you're saying, Lydia, get to the horror, enough of this true crime and thriller stuff, well, here we go. The covers of Best Horror of the Year are kind of all over the place. They have a very similar thing. Like, it's sort of magazine style in that way, even though it only comes out once a year. It's got Best Horror of the Year. It always has the volume number. They're printed by the same publisher as far as I know. They always look very, very same on your shelf, which I love. And it's got a little cutout on the one side that lists some of the authors that are in the issue. And this one has an alien bug man on it. They always have like a theme color. So there's not a lot of multicolor going on these Best Horror of the Year. This one's green. I like blue ones, whatever. And a lot of great short stories, which really sit well in the winter months for me anyway. If you also read a lot of short stories in the winter, let me know. Or if you, like me, look forward to Ellen Datlow edited anthologies every single year around this time. From Ellen Datlow, the venerable queen of horror anthologies, as she is, per the New York Times, comes a new entry in a series that has brought you thrilling stories from Stephen King to Mira Grant and the best horror stories available. This is for more than 4 decades. This is volume 17. I've only got a couple of them on my shelves. Now, they don't list the entire table of contents here, so you can always go on to ellendatlow.com, and I'll leave a link in the comments below. But yeah, this is one of my favorite Best Horror of the Year. A lot of the times there's a lot of very similar authors. Stephen Graham Jones makes an appearance often. Joe Hill has made an appearance a lot. Stephen King sometimes. Tananarive do. Laird Barron can be found within the pages of these. And I have to say that that's a goal, and that's the thing. If you have short stories, if you're a writer of short stories, try and get them in a lot of the places that most horror readers read. The thing I love about this the most is it's not only like a who's who of who's writing horror, it's a who's who of who's publishing horror, because she does have sort of like a look back at the year at the beginning of the book, and that's my most favorite portion of these books, to check out what she was reading, where horror was appearing. It's not all in Nightmare Magazine, although a lot of it's in Nightmare Magazine, but she now reads Bookworms Magazine and things like that, who is co-owned and co-edited by Regina St. Clair of Regina's Haunted Library. So looking at the beginnings of her book, or where these stories were published, will always open up a whole new world of horror for you. So if you've not picked them up and you like short stories, I highly recommend seeing where the stories have come from, so you too can come up with your own best of the year in a way, and read the same sort of publications where these great stories are being found. So the last book on the list is also a really good choice for Christmas horror short reading. December 23rd, we have Monstrous Tales, Haunting Encounters with Britain's Mythical Beasts. From the Finn folk of the beaches of Orkney to the plague monsters of the Welsh mountains and the giant slugs of the Derbyshire peaks and the beast of Bodmin Moor, Britain is home to many strange creatures of folklore. Some are ancient, as enduring of the forests and mountains that they inhabit. Others live among us in our cities, creating new legends as they scuttle through the shadows, and none of them are to be trusted. Now, the cover has sort of like that Old English font, that slanted sort of Old English font that maybe isn't that old or very English. It's got a leafy wreath around a little bit of what could be like an illumination on the edge of a book or the cover of a book or something of an older book. I think it's kind of neat. It's very fitting. It doesn't tell you a lot about what's going on in there as the description does, but it's fitting. If there's anything on this list that you think I ought to read, or of course, if you, like me, really love a house on a cover, if you think that the addition of thrillers is a really good thing in Christmas, I find them extremely cozy, just really easy to read. So when you're kind of cooped up in the colder weather here in North America, then they really come in handy. coming up soon, I'm going to be reading some books for December, choosing some maybe classics. I want to read A Christmas Carol. I want to get into some of the Jane Austen that I'd picked up, and maybe somewhere in there find some more Dickens or something that's Christmassy. I don't want to get too much into Gothics because I think I'm going to be reading more of those in January. But for December, I wanted something dark and cozy and maybe some easy to read thrillers. That's why I've included so many thrillers on this, because I find that they're very cozy, easy to get through, and just really fun to read, something that you kind of need in these cold North American winters. So if you're going to be cozying up with some thrillers and classics, let me know. Thank you so much for watching, and have an ooky, spooky day.